How do you make your dreams a reality? Has it been very challenging? Why? The Dream to Rise podcast was created to inspire individuals on their journeys of personal and professional growth. Recognizing the power of dreams and aspirations, this podcast aims to share authentic stories, valuable insights, and transformative strategies from a diverse range of guests. It serves as a platform for encouraging listeners to overcome obstacles, embrace their potential, and pursue their passions with purpose and determination, ultimately empowering them to turn their dreams into reality. Let us listen to our guest and learn from their story. Welcome to our Dream to Rise podcast, and this is Cynthia Concordia, your host. My guest for today is an Army combat veteran, Ironman athlete, patented inventor, author, and someone who's built and lost businesses. He lived through collapse and comeback cycles. His work now centers on teaching others how to exchange old limiting for something more sustainable, a process he calls the principle of exchange. And he helps people move through their fear and failure and into confidence and action, sharing vivid stories from the battlefield, startups, endurance racing, and even acting stage. Wow. Actually, your book is now published. Has it been published?
It has been published last Thursday, and it's already #1 new release and #2 on the bestseller list.
Wonderful. Wake up to die again. Without further ado, let us welcome Scott Lackey. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Cynthia. And you have this aura about you. You are such a positive influence. I noticed that the last two times we talked. But anyway, it's very nice to be here. Thank you for the platform and to meet your audience. And I look forward to catching up today.
Same here. And it's an honor to have you here. So all of these achievements through your journey, I'm just amazed by how you were able to overcome all those adversities and now inspiring other people to be the best version of themselves. So let us get started. I usually ask my guests to share their story. So tell us something about yourself that brought you to where you are right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. The way I like to answer that question is probably a little different than maybe most of your guests answer the question. How did Scott get to where he is today with Cynthia on this Dream to Rise podcast? And honestly, the answer is quite simple. I feel like my entire life is like I've lived like 9 lives, 9 different lives. And that's part of the contribution to the book title, which you mentioned, which is Wake Up to Die Again. And that's a provocative title, and it can really have 2 meanings. Right? You and I both know, Cynthia, that there are people listening to this podcast or even guests that you've had before that at a period of time in their life, they just woke up every day just to die a little bit more, giving themselves up a little bit more. And part of my book is written to that audience, the people that are lost, don't know how they got to where they are, know they're not where they're supposed to be. That's part of my audience. But it's also part of who I am as a human being. To answer your question, how did Scott get here today with Cynthia? And it was going through all of these trials, tribulations, right? Betrayals, some things that were wonderfully positive. I basically refer to them in the book as lightning strikes, Cynthia. So the story of the book, I should say, is part of my life, but not incomplete. That's how we got here today. It's because of my life's journey that led me to a place where I wanted to do exactly how you opened up the podcast. I wanted to share that story in a very authentic way so that when your guest or your audience members, if somebody buys the book and they read it, they are literally going to see their life in my story. It's going to encourage them and give them some tools to help them be a better version of themselves today versus tomorrow. And support really like your mission, your name of your podcast, Dream to Rise, because it is a dream. We do want to have that vision that tomorrow can be a better day than today.
I'm kind of intrigued by the title, Wake Up to Die Again.
Yeah.
I always say to myself, okay, wake up to live forever. I mean,
that's right.
I don't know. Why is it to die again? I don't know. Probably you could
share. 1,000%. And let's talk about that because the title is meant to be a little paradoxical. Okay. And like I said, there are people that are like you and I, that to wake up and die again is a gift. What it means for a person like yourself and myself is that every day I get up, I'm willing to sacrifice something to be a better version of myself today, right? In other words, when you talked about in the opening about Scott talking about a principle of exchange, and it's not a law of exchange. I call it a principle of exchange because it means that in order to move forward, in order to gain something, in order to have a dream and achieve that dream, there are things that you're going to have to give up, and you're going to have to identify what they are. And so that's fundamentally what we're talking about. When I say wake up to die again, and why is that a gift? It's because something has to go, something has to die, something has to change in order for me to achieve the things that I want in life. So that's the beautiful side of wake up to die again. It's a gift to yourself. Okay. Now, the other side of the coin is what I mentioned a few minutes ago is there are people that have not reached the place, Cynthia, where you are. They don't wake up in the morning with a dream again about being a better version or achieving something. They actually wake up quite miserable. They may wake up crying. They may have not have slept all night because they're having nightmares, but they're waking up every day and a small piece of them is dying every day. And we know these people. We meet them in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, where they just don't know how they got to where they are in life. They know they're not where they're supposed to be, but they don't know how they got there. So that is the negative side of wake up to die again. I don't want people to wake up that way. I've woken up that way before. I want people to wake up just like you said, Cynthia. Wake up in the morning, and when that sunrise comes up or that cloudy day is present, is that they feel like they've been given a gift of another day. And they have a smile on their face because they're going to move forward and do something that's positive for themselves, right? To be a better version of themselves today than tomorrow. And that gift that we give ourselves, and you know this, Cynthia, the gift that we give ourselves to do that every single day, not only is that a gift to us and it changes who we are, but it also changes the people that are around us. It changes our families, our neighbors. It changes the way we respond to people, changes the way we respond to people online. And that's the beautiful part of waking up to die again, is that it's a gift.
I agree with you. And let go of all that we've gone through so much and start moving forward and work on the present and then see what you can do to make your future a better place and become a better version of yourself.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle with that concept, though. Let go. They just can't let go of the past. And there's another version of people that can't live in today. They're too worried about the future to live in today. And I'm reminded of something that maybe you've heard before. I think many people have heard this. There's a saying, it's in Latin, and the saying is carpe diem. It stands for seize the day. Have you heard that before?
Seize the day. Yes.
Yeah, it's a Latin phrase, carpe diem, seize the day. But what nobody tells us is that's not the whole sentence, right? If you read the whole sentence in English, it says, seize the day, carrying as little in tomorrow as possible. But that is also true of the past, right? Because the past, the present, and the future, everything is only in today. It's what you can control, what you can influence. It's only in today.
Yes.
And so this concept, my grandfather even said this one time. He said, Scott, the problem with some people, it's not that they don't remember what happened. It's that they can't forget what happened. That's a huge problem.
So do you believe in forgive and forget?
I don't believe in the necessity forget. I think there's value in remembering, right? I think there's great value in remembering. Okay. But I do believe in forgiveness 1000%. And forgiveness is very important. You ready for this? Everybody wants to talk about forgiveness of others. That's fine. I don't talk about that. What I talk about first and foremost is people forgiving themselves. That's where it starts. Forgiveness, in my opinion, starts with yourself. And when you do that, the things that you are beating yourself up for and hanging over your head, the things that you can't forget or unwilling to forget, that pain, when you give yourself forgiveness, no longer has control over you.
Have you gone through that journey wherein it was hard for you to forgive yourself?
Yeah, I actually write a chapter in the book about this. One of the chapters in my book, the title of the chapter is The Man I Had to Forgive Was the Person I Didn't Become. More than once in my life, as a part of this journey of growing, I've had to forgive myself for certain things happening that were, what I would call incredible tragedies and betrayals, One of the things I've talked about in recent podcast interviews was an invention that I came up with, a product called a childhood health passport. And that product was just successful enough that it attracted investors, private equity investors. They invested $3 million in the business plan. That's the American dream, right? And so I launched the product with family members involved in the business. And 6 months later, the private equity firm fired me and the management team and stole the business and left me with nothing, financially destroyed. And then I had to go home that day and tell my wife with my 2.5-year-old son, and she's pregnant, that we've just lost everything, right? Yeah, I was saying a few more things than oh my, right? And so yeah, I mean, that's just one event.
But
And
how were you able to overcome that?
right.
Did you get stuck for a long time in that situation?
I don't know if I would say stuck is the right word, but I think I know what you're trying to say is how, first of all, how do you overcome that? How do you,
how were you able to overcome?
just how? How do you not just curl up in a ball and fall off the cliff, And certainly it wasn't easy. And I'm going to describe it in such a way that it's going to sound easy, but that's not, my intention, right? It actually took a couple of years before I fully reconciled that event. But when you go through something like that, you're going to blame the world, but the world's not going to be the only thing you blame. You're going to blame yourself, and other people are going to blame you. So it's not just you lashing out at the world or you lashing yourself. There are going to be plenty of other people that are going to point the finger at you and say you were the problem. Okay. Or the management team was the problem, or this decision was the problem. Everybody's going to do that. And to your listeners, whatever you're going through in your life right now that has you in that place, and you don't have to lose a business. This can be a divorce. This can be an addiction. You can be fired. There's a long list of things that listeners are going to go through or have gone through that they haven't forgiven themselves for. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the number one place you need to start before your dream is going to rise, is that you need to reconcile the event or events with yourself, nobody else. You can't control them, but you need to reconcile those events with yourself so that you can move forward. And what does reconciliation look like? Well, it looks like you potentially standing in the mirror and telling yourself the truth of exactly what happened and accepting that, giving yourself grace, extending forgiveness to yourself first and foremost, because guess what? I looked at your resume and you're not perfect. You're a human being and you're going to make mistakes. So the sooner you get to that place where you're willing to forgive yourself, and like I said, forget about everybody else. I don't care what they did to you. No offense. Forgive yourself what you control. And that's going to open doors for you to start moving forward. And then back to that story. A couple of years later, I think I was sick of being sick about the subject. And the way forgiveness of myself came to me at the end of that process was this thought that was placed in my mind one day, arguing about, why am I here? Why did this happen? Single word was planted in my thought process, and that thought was stewardship. And for me, that was a huge aha moment. Stewardship. I had been treating the entire process like ownership. Ownership is like sticking your hand in a bucket of water and trying to grab a handful. You can't do that. But if you keep your hand open, then you treat things like stewardship. You treat your health like stewardship. You don't own your health. You're a steward of your health. If you treat relationships, you don't own relationships. You're a steward of relationships. If you do those things, there's great peace and joy and happiness that comes from that, being a steward versus an owner. And so that was an important revelation to me, is that I should have been treating my invention and the investment as a stewardship opportunity, not an ownership opportunity. And I think things would have went different, but that was a big lesson that I learned and carried forward.
Most of the time we have to really fall down on the ground before we realize all these things, the lessons.
Isn't it a shame? Isn't it a shame? That's so true. It's just true.
Yeah.
But again, the message is, for those of us that do fall down on the ground and we get back up, right? Pat yourself on the back. Congratulations. Job well done.
Yes.
But we also want to speak to those people that are still laying on the ground, right?
Yes.
There's more of them. There are more people that are still laying on the ground than there are that got back up and said, I'm going to be okay. And they they extended forgiveness and grace to themselves. There's a lot of people carrying that weight around right now.
And you've mentioned how you overcome your struggle. First, reconcile with yourself, forgiveness. What other means have you done in terms of lifting you up, helping you get
Yeah.
up again?
No, thank you for that specific question. I want to talk about something else with the audience that they're all going to recognize with themselves. If you have not gotten back up yet, one of the reasons is because you don't trust yourself anymore. Another reason why you haven't gotten back up yet, and the reason you don't trust yourself, is because you have a lot of broken promises in your life. And those broken promises are to yourself. I'm not talking about other people. This whole conversation is about me or you as an individual, right? So let's take the first one. What do you mean I don't trust myself anymore? It's because of the broken promises. You've told yourself for a lifetime, or whatever event broke you down, whatever you lost, you've told yourself all these things. Matter of fact, I'll say it this way. Here's the question. What is it that you've told yourself so many times that's a lie that feels real right now?
Me, when I was a child, I've experienced like, I cannot do this. I'm not good enough. I don't have the experience. I'm not worth doing. I'm not that type
Yeah,
of person who
yeah.
cannot do it. Low self.
Yet here you are. Yet here you are, right? And so that same voice that the listeners have, we all have the same voice. Scott, you're not qualified to write a book. You can't do an Ironman race. Nobody wants to read what you wrote. We all have that same voice. Yet here I am. The book's been published, and now it's #1 new release and #2 on the bestsellers list. Well, I guess the voice was wrong. Well, thank God that I didn't listen to that voice and never write the book.
Exactly.
Right. So back to your listeners, the broken promises thing is really important. I would encourage you to look at your life. What is it in your life? How many things can you write down where you promised yourself you were going to do something and you look back and you never did it? And that's a weight that you carry with you. I did that not too long ago as a self-evaluation. And one of the things that kept coming to the surface that I promised myself I was always going to do 6 years ago, and I never did, was an Ironman race. And I said, yep, Scott, that's true. You've been lying. You told yourself you were going to do it. You never did it. So are you going to do it now? I said, yes, I'm going to do it now. And so I signed up. I didn't tell anybody for about 45 days until my family figured out something was going on. But 11 months later, I did my first 140.6 mile Ironman race because I wasn't going to break my promise to myself. That's what I'm talking about to your listeners. Go back and find out the promises. Pick one that you've been carrying for a long time and do something about it.
And having a clear picture of what your purpose is. Because when you're guided by your purpose, what gives you joy, what gives you meaning, it's not about achieving, the titles and everything, but it's about really inspiring others.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Oh, listen, I've said this a million times. If nobody ever knew that I did an Ironman race, I don't care. It wasn't for them. It was for me. I know what it felt. If somebody came in my office and never saw a single plaque, a single award, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't for you. That was for me, And again, it goes back to your audience. I want to encourage you to do some of the behaviors, not for other people. Who cares what they think? They don't care you got the award, the medal. They don't care. Matter of fact, they may be jealous of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important person is you. You have to care more. And I'm going to share this one last story, Cynthia. Since we were talking about the Ironman race, early in the Ironman training, I had that same voice, right, telling me, you're probably not going to be able to do this. You're not going to stick with it. You're this. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. And one day, that voice said to me, Scott, don't worry about going and doing the workouts today. You've been doing great. Nobody's going to know. And that made my head spin, Cynthia. So wait a minute. What do you mean nobody's going to know? I'm going to know. The most important person in the equation is going to know. That's what I want your audience to hear, right? I want the audience to hear that you're the most important person. You're going to know. And so tie that back into learning to trust yourself again and tie that back into working on fixing or honoring some of those broken promises. That's a beautiful place to be, Cynthia.
Did you have people who were there to support you, who were there to lift you up, who were there who are aligned? Because during that time when I was in my dark bubble for 6 years, when my late husband passed away after second restraining order, and was blamed by his family because of the heart attack, because of the stress he got from that restraining order. I felt so miserable. I was depressed, and I stopped engaging with people.
Yeah.
When I stopped engaging with people, the more I got really down, really felt so down. But when someone reached out to me, my Zumba instructor, I would just attend and then just leave. But she initiated chatting with me and helped me out. So from that time on, I was able to get that positive energy from other people. And I was able to transmit that positive energy as
Yeah.
well and created very
Yeah.
meaningful relationship. So I don't know, did that happen to you as well?
I wouldn't say, with no disrespect to other people, it was not 50 or 60 or 70% came from them.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't it for me. But again, I just feel it was different. Was my family supportive of me doing an Ironman race and the hours it took? They really were.
Mhm.
You know, where there's some days where they're like, come on, Dad, can't you just take a break on Saturday and we go do this? You know, there was a little bit of that, but no, for the most part, they were very supportive. We have a triathlon club, and the club members, you know, were supportive. I had a great coach, very supportive. But those people, my wife, the triathlon club, my coach, they're not there at 4 o'clock in the morning when the alarm goes off. They're not there when I'm on the track by myself and it's raining and it's cold and it's dark and I had to get in the car and drive there to do a workout. Nobody was there. Now, were there days where I went on bike long rides with people? Yeah, it was nice to do that. That was good. So I'm not minimizing. I'm just saying more than anything, this is going to sound terrible. I don't mean to, but more than anything, it was me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, and I just can't operate differently, because if I need other people to be better, a better version of me so that I can be me, man, I'm going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to fail.
Mm-hmm. It's
You
not
know,
about them making you the best version of yourself, like what you mentioned about your family, celebrating your small wins.
yeah,
They're
and
there
they
to
did.
support you.
Yeah, no, they did, and that's part of the message of what we're talking about today. I lived a large part of my life where it was really important to me that other people approved of me. It was really important to me that people thought, certain people thought that I mattered or that I made it,
Mhm.
right? Or that I had the right car. Or there was a long time I lived that way.
Uh-huh.
You know, oh, I don't live that way now. I don't care. I mean, you know, uh, but when I look back at that, I know some of the audience can understand this. I look back to that, and here was the question I asked myself: Scott, what is it inside you that's empty enough that you're trying to fill with some other fake thing? What is it? And I asked that over and over again. And then I finally figured out the answer. And the answer was even simpler than probably people want to hear. The answer to the question is that when I found out that I, Scott Lackey, was not enough for myself, that was the hole that I had to fill. So in other words, I had to figure out, how can I be enough for myself? And man, when I figured that out, I didn't need anything else. By the way, that doesn't mean I don't want my family. No. I get up every day because of my family, right? But I'm just talking about me.
Yeah.
The self reconciliation that had to take place is that I had to learn to become enough for myself. And the gift from that is that I could then be enough for other people. Like you're saying, I can help other people now.
That's it. That's what I was trying to share with the audience, that if you are able to fill in the gap, I mean, the hole that is lacking, then it's overflowing. Then it goes to the other people. Other people are being blessed.
You
Because,
become a wellspring.
yes, well, someone asked me, how do you define success? For me, success is not about the money, the title, the salary, the position. Success is about how are you able to spread that light for others, so others may become a light warrior as well.
Yep. Love that, Cynthia.
That's the
I
thing.
feel the same way.
Your goals now for this next 12 months.
I'm getting that question a lot right now, because people are like, okay, you published the book. What's next? You know what I mean? Uh, and so, two big things are next. And I'm going to call it 80-20. Here's the 80% of what's next. It's doing this exact same thing, Cynthia, that you and I are doing right now, is looking for platforms where I can speak to people either through a podcast or on a stage and have this conversation about resilience and transformation and discipline and execution, all these things that are important characteristics and keys to being a better version of ourselves, right? To both audiences, Cynthia, right? I want to speak to the audience that's waking up to die again in a negative way. And I want to also speak to the audience that's waking up to die again in a very positive way. How can we share with each other to be better? So that's 80% of what I'm working on moving forward. And then, of course, this goes without saying, I'm always working on myself and my family, but we're going to leave that on the side for a moment. But the other 20% is, what's book number 2 going to look like? And I'm already thinking about that concept, but that's the 20%.
When are you planning to, it's still in the first stage because you just published your book. So now
it's in the mental stage right now. I'm just mentally discussing ideas with myself. I've had already many people let's start out with this. I had a large group of beta readers who read the book before it was ever published. And I learned a lot from them about how the book influenced their life. I had one guy send me a text message. It scared me when I got the text messages because the first sentence in the text message said, "Scott, I'm going to have to apologize about reading your book." And I thought, oh gosh, what happened, And the rest of it was beautiful. He said, "You don't know this, but I'm going through a tough time in my life. And in the first 6 chapters of your book, I have laughed and cried. And now I need to set the book down and think about what you said before I can come back to it." And he said, "I think you're helping me, that I'm going to help you." Right? What a beautiful message from one of the readers. Yeah. I had another reader read the book and say, after 4 chapters, she said to me nervously, "I'm so sorry. I just can't read this. This book isn't for me." I said, "No problem. Don't feel bad. That's the whole point of you reading it as a beta reader, is for me to learn. And so would you mind telling me why this book's not for you?" She goes, "It's the questions at the end of the chapter. I don't want to answer the questions at the end of the chapter." I said, "Well, don't worry about the questions." I said, "Ignore them. I just want you to read the book." "Oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that, Scott." So
it's hard for them to do some self-reflection.
Yep. So about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks later, she works at the gym I go to. So 3 or 4 weeks later, I come in and she's at the front counter and she said, "Can I talk to you real quick?" I said, "Sure." I said, "Everything okay?" She said, "Yeah." She says, "I'm halfway through the book now. I'm not answering the questions, but I really like the book."
The more she answers the question, the more effective the book will be for her.
Yeah. But look at the spectrum though, right? Well, on one hand, I've got to set the book down. You've made me laugh and cry, and I need to think about what you said. To all the way over here of, I don't want to talk about that stuff. But they taught me a lot. So these beta readers, along with some of the people that I'm no doubt going to meet that are buying the book right now, that are going to send me an email, something. I'm going to learn from them. And I think that's going to be my inspiration for what's next. I think they're going to teach me what's next. That's what I think. Matter of fact, Cynthia, I hope you get a copy because of this topic that we're talking about. I think you would find, you don't have to answer the questions, but I think you would, the stories, I think you would get great value of because it's consistent with what you're doing with Dream to Rise.
Yes, of course. Send us the link. So it's in Amazon, right?
It is. It's just go to Amazon, you type in "Wake Up to Die Again," boom, it's right there. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So to our listeners, please just click on that button, look for
"Wake Up to Die Again."
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I promise you this. I've learned enough from my beta readers. You won't regret reading this. It's not a book, Cynthia, that tells you here's the 7 things you need to do to fix your life. No, it's not that. That's not true. Right. But what I can promise you is that everybody that reads this book, that you are going to relate to all of these stories that I tell you. The facts will be different in your life, but you will place your facts in my story and you're going to relate to it. And I share some very actionable things that you can consider in your life to help you get out of whatever it is that you're wrestling with right now.
That's
chapter number 1, by the way, chapter number 1, you're not where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, see? Why is it very important to share our story? I know other people are in that situation.
Yeah.
It's a matter of really empowering them to, hey, stand up, and there's more to come, more opportunities. If you just stay in your comfort zone, then nothing will happen.
You get what you get and don't throw a fit.
Yes, go out, take the risk. I always tell other people, I would rather jump in rather than live in regret.
Yeah. My very, very first invention that I came up with when I was in the military, I found myself in a position to scrape up enough money from a bank loan and a little bit of money that I had saved to invest $10,000. And my family tried their best to nicely convince me to not do it. And one day, my dad gave his best argument. He never told me not to do it, ever. But he gave me his best argument for me to consider before I invested. And I'll never forget telling him that, Dad, I don't disagree with anything you said, but you just have to understand. I am more worried about not doing this and living with it the rest of my life than I am about losing $10,000.
Yes.
And by the way, I ended up losing the $10,000, but that's okay.
But
I'm not sitting here right now telling you that I never did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would break my heart.
But what you're doing is the value is more than 10,000.
Oh my gosh.
Other people.
It's priceless.
Yes, exactly. So what do you think would be the major roadblock for your second?
If there is a major roadblock, you're looking at him on your video screen. It would be me. It would be something going on up here.
Exactly.
That's the major roadblock for all of us. Nothing else. It's not a person. It's not a place. It's not a thing. It's me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I'm sorry, it's not another person. It is me, the person. That is my greatest risk, is me. And, like I said, I say this a lot. We all have those two voices in our head. Only one of them can win. And some days I'm going to make a bad decision and I'm going to lose the battle, but I'm not going to lose the war.
Yes. And you have this inner feeling, gut feel, right? The
1,000%. 1,000%.
The inner voice that talks to you, and that inner voice is connected to
it is. It's the Holy Spirit.
Yes. Write down all your questions so it stays in your subconscious mind overnight. And when you wake up, you will see signs, you will see messages through friends, through readings in your Bible, from a billboard that would answer your question.
I actually talk about that, Cynthia, in my book, where when you're being attacked, when that negative voice is attacking you, don't run from it. Turn around, sit down, get a notebook out, and write down all the lies. Let's use my book as an example. The voice was attacking me when I started writing my book. Got my notebook out. I said, okay, tell me what I need to know about. Well, Scott, nobody's ever going to read your book. Okay, let me write that down. All right. What else? Nobody cares about what you have to say. Okay. Scott, you've never written a book before. You don't know what you're doing. Okay. You don't have the money to pay for the book. Okay. What else? Keep going. I wrote down, and I kept asking the question, what's next? What's next? And then after I wrote down and I couldn't think of anything else that was negative, I went back and I started reading it. And I was like, oh, here we go again. I think I've heard this story before. Nobody's going to care about what you write about. Really? I care. That's a lie. You don't have the money to pay for the book. I haven't even asked anybody how much it costs to write the book. How could you know that? Another lie, right? So it's not a bad thing to go write these things down.
Exactly.
Right? But this is the voice that, if there's two voices, here's what that voice taught me. Because some people will ask, well, Scott, I agree with you, but how do I tell the difference? It's a great question, right? This is how I tell the difference. Anytime the voice is convicting, you're a liar. Mm-hmm. Okay? The voice from the Spirit is different. Right? So Can the voice of the Spirit convict me when I'm doing something wrong? Of course it can. But it's completely different than the voice of the Spirit that is convicting me when I'm trying to do something right and threatening me.
Yeah.
Okay. The good voice from the Spirit doesn't threaten.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that's how I tell the difference, to describe it loosely for the audience.
It's really all about what you're nurturing in your thoughts. Are you nurturing negativity or positivity?
Okay.
Because that will become a reality. Whatever is in your thoughts becomes reality. So,
Yes, it creates direction.
yes. So be careful with what you're nurturing. And so before we end, what would be your simple advice for our listeners?
Thank you for that. Something that I've been working on and thinking a lot about here recently. I'm glad you asked that question. It's supportive of everything we talked about today, but here's the brief thing I would encourage everyone to think about. The world and people around us tell us that in order for us to achieve something or to be better or to feel better, it's about addition. You need to add something to your life, right? TV commercials are notorious for it. Go on social media. It's always about adding something to your life in order to get better. Well, I've chased every single one of those trails. And I've been to a lot of checkpoints along the way. And when I got there, there was nobody there but a lot of emptiness. Years and years and years ago, I started practicing subtraction, giving up things, that whole principle of exchange, exchanging things for something better. So I'd like to leave the audience with that message: is wherever you are in your life, I'd encourage you to give consideration and thought to stop trying to add things to your life to get to where you're going. Consider looking at things to give up and get rid of. I believe that's a real area of improvement that you can look for moving forward. And of course, I talk a lot about that in the book. But think of the art of subtraction, not the principle of addition.
That's beautiful. It's a different way of seeing things in a different perspective. I like
Yeah.
that because I always hear add, and then so that it will spread out. But here you're talking about subtracting, eliminating all those negative feelings. That's what I get. So
Yeah.
that more positive things would come in to fill the gap. Yes.
I don't know who said this first, but people have said the saying, less is more. That is, in essence, the principle of subtraction over addition. Less is more.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
To give is better to give is better than to receive, right? Less is more.
But then we should also be a gracious receiver.
Of course.
That's
Anytime you receive a
the
gift,
law
yeah.
of circulation for us to live as well.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to confuse I'm not saying everything that you add in your life is bad. I mean, getting married is an addition, right?
Yes, of course.
That's a beautiful thing,
Yes.
right? But just to pour some concrete here, yes, getting married is an addition. But if you practice subtraction with your spouse, right? What is subtraction? Subtraction is sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
If you practice sacrificial love with your spouse, that's the beautiful gift.
Beautiful message which you have just shared with us. So thank you so much, Scott, for this wonderful time with me and then sharing your insights and your knowledge also with our listeners and televiewers, because I'll be posting this also on YouTube. I wish you all the best, especially for your book and the forthcoming book. I'm kind of excited.
Oh, you're awesome, Cynthia. Well, we covered a lot of ground today, a lot of different topics, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share, the name of the book on Amazon, Wake Up to Die Again. And honestly, and I really mean this sincerely, it would be awesome if you pick up a copy, because maybe our next podcast will be on digging into some of the topics that are in the book for your audience.
Wonderful. Of course. Okay. I will do that. Okay. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you so much. Till the next episode. Okay.
Such an incredible story of resilience and transformation. The journey is a powerful reminder that adversity can lead to profound personal growth and the ability to uplift others. It's inspiring to see how each one turned their challenges into opportunities for healing, especially for those who may feel lost or hopeless. I want to take this opportunity to invite you to explore my books, My Journey into Becoming and Dream to Rise from Darkness into Light. In my journey into becoming, I shared my personal struggles in overcoming an abusive relationship and the heart-wrenching moments that followed, ultimately finding my purpose in helping others live their dreams. Dream to Rise, an anthology, combines the stories of 18 courageous co-authors who illuminate the path from darkness to light. Each narrative showcasing the profound impact that sharing our truths can have on those who are struggling. Together, we can inspire change and encourage others to embrace their own journeys. Remember, your voice matters, and there is a community of support waiting to lift you up. Let's continue to be beacons of hope and make a difference in this world. Thank you for being here and for everything you're doing to help others rise. For those who would like to be a part of the Dream to Rise Inner Circle, this is a mastermind group that fosters learning and growth. My main objective is to help the members rise and shine. Be a part of this amazing group and let's thrive to be the best version of ourselves. If you need more information, please visit my website, www.dreamtorise.info. Again, www.dreamtorise.info. Have a blessed day to all.